as well. I mean, it's, yeah, it's kind of almost your baby once you put it down on the page, and then, to have somebody else raise it, sometimes is a little bit awkward, as it were.
Yeah. And, it's important to think about a script when you're directing it as somebody else's. But, so you get a sort of healthy level of disrespect for it where you can let it be its own thing. But yeah, it's there, as the older I get, the more I just can't even imagine. Like, yeah, they're so, and most of the directors I really love are writer directors. So I guess that sort of fits in it too.
You had mentioned earlier about, we see these mega blockbusters that are out there now, but I think people do crave, kind of walking away from the big major blockbusters just to have a movie to sit down to watch, that is, it's funny that, you don't have to, there's not big action scenes or anything like that, but it does make you laugh, and it does make you, kind of, I don't want to say relax, but, you don't have to worry about, having to be there for 2.5 hours watching this epic movie versus just, sitting down and just enjoying a good movie as it is. I mean, 21 days, I mean, that's, as much as that seems to be really, really quick, I think sometimes the best things come out of things that are shot really, really shortly like that. But how's been the reaction to this movie? Because it's been out for about a month, and what's been the thoughts of the audience so far?
Well, it's been really great. I mean, when you're dealing with a small movie with not big stars, there's not automatically an audience for it. So people just sort of wander upon it. But it's been great. Like even the sort of like bad reviews have been great. Like somebody called it Booksmart on crack, which is like, sounds good to me. Somebody wrote and was like, I usually don't like these kind of movies, and my wife doesn't either, but we watched it anyway and really enjoyed it. Which is like saying, that's like sort of a mercy date. It's like, it's like someone saying, you're not really my type. But no, it's been great. And the thing is, it's just really hard right now because, there are really big movies that, everybody's locked inside. There's so much content from all over the world. Even big movies are just playing on your computer screen. So it's difficult. It used to be the big studios control the movie industry, and now it's the big streamers that control the movie industry. So, it's like the big movies get bigger and the little movies get smaller. But it's been great, and I'm really happy that women seem to be really responding to it well, and young women seem to be responding to it well. Like Kimmie got an email from a 16-year-old girl who said, "This is absolutely my new favorite movie. Me and my friends watch it and we've memorized the lines." And, you can't buy that kind of stuff. That's just so wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, mostly really, really good. I mean, you always want more people to see it. At least I do. I mean, the whole idea of making a movie is to reach as many people as possible. And, as your earlier comment about, movies being such a slog, their movies are too long. I mean, Antarctica is 83 minutes, and it was always intended to be about 83 minutes. There are some stories that don't, it's not everything's The Godfather Part 2, or Lawrence of Arabia. It doesn't need it. It's just that everyone's so in love with their own, the smell of their own farts. It's like movie, 2.5 hours is a long time. It's a fast-paced world. I mean, I like that people know that they're going to, it's a movie about two teenage girls. I mean, how long should it be? So, and you look at old movies are like 75 minutes. They were meant to be shown on like a double bill. So a lot of the classics of yesteryear are really short. So, I mean, and also indie movies are slow. I remember our first test screening. At the time I smoked. I don't smoke anymore. Me and my producer went out just to have one cigarette. We're so nervous. It's the first test screening. It's an audience full of teenage girls. And we come back inside and we're like, oh my God, look how much has changed in the movie already. It's, so it's fast paced. But that's not a bad thing. I'd rather have a movie that moves, that you want to watch again, as opposed to a movie that's like, okay, I get it, so. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that is answering my question. I know I'm producing a movie. We're just in the final edits right now of it, and we did it on a very, very limited shoestring budget, but it's only going to be a little over an hour. And really, to tell you the truth, I think it's worth being a little bit over an hour because our story didn't really lend to having a very, very, very long time frame. So I'm interested to see if that winds up being a situation where those short attention spans are going to be there as well. But I absolutely understand the fact that sometimes, sometimes less is more. Getting to those plot points a lot quicker. So
Yeah,
absolutely 100% agree with you.
and it's movies are like music or books. They should be as long as they should be. It's like they're great short books, they're great huge books. So and they're great short films. So it all. There's no obligation to make it a certain length. I mean, obviously, when you're trying to sell a movie, it's harder to sell a 52-minute movie than a 90-minute movie. But, if you're doing it for the sake of the story, just, do whatever it needs to be. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that ends up being the case a little bit. I mean, I think podcasting is the kind of the gold standard right now in that, because some podcasts are 2 hours. Some podcasts are a half an hour. Mine roughly runs right around maybe 25 minutes. So, that's how things kind of go, And I think with the attention span right now of a lot of the audience right now, I think that's kind of important for them, to be there long enough for them to pay attention, but not long enough to kind of, get them out there. So that is kind of important. Working with the crew, and tell me a little bit about working with the crew and working with some of the places that you worked at in the 21 days.
We shot the movie in upstate New York, about 2 hours north of New York City, in Kingston and Hudson Valley. Our crew, some of them I had worked with before. We worked really hard to find our director of photography, Madeline K. Kahn, and I interviewed about 25 cinematographers before we decided to work with her. I'd worked with our costume person before. It's tricky. It's like building an army or a family. It's all about how well you communicate with them. It's just like the actors, you want to present them with the world you're trying to create. And, hopefully they not only do their job, but they contribute creatively. I mean, I always tell my crew that, think of this movie as a movie you're directing. So how would you direct it? From your, camera person point of view or your art direction point of view, what story we're trying to tell. And, Madeline, the cinematographer, was great. Like, she would do things like she would grade the colors of each scene according to how comfortable the lead characters were. So when the characters were happy and together, it was a different color scheme than when they were in school and they were anxious. So that kind of stuff is really smart and very interesting to me. And it's very subtle, but I like people who put that kind of work into their job. And, our art department, if you look at the classroom scenes, there's all this sort of weird writing on the blackboards they came up with all that. And, it was interesting. We shot in the fall. It's TV season, where a lot of TV shows were being shot. So almost all the crews were used up on all these Netflix shows. So a lot of the crew we wound up using was basically green, real young and had made 1 or 2 films before. Our one of our art directors, Margie, had never worked on a film before, and she did an amazing job. She owned a stationery shop. So, I mean, that's, I think that's the problem with the movie industry. People aren't given enough chances. And, if someone is really committed and has a good artistic mind, there's no reason they can't do a job in a movie. But, in the real movie world, you have to be a PA for X amount of years and then you move up and those jobs are really hard to get. So it was kind of fun to do that thing with an independent film, to give people a chance. So, and, you take a chance as a director, but, when it pays off, it's a wonderful feeling. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, that's the kind of the great thing about what's going on right now in terms of independent film, that there's more opportunities for young artists to at least get their teeth sharpened, as it were, on smaller sets, and try to figure out everything that they could possibly do. I mean, things have gotten crazy over the past decade, if not two, even since I was in film school. That it's kind of crazy to think of the technology that has come by, and the availability of equipment that is available to young filmmakers. So it's been interesting. It used to be just that if you're in Hollywood, you would be getting some of the best equipment in the world. But now, I mean, we're starting to see that independent film starting to catch up a little bit. So it's great to be able to see that as well.
Oh yeah, and it's interesting if you look at the independent films that broke ground in the 80s and 90s, and people like Spike Lee and Jim Jarmusch and Kevin Smith and stuff, their first films all looked terrible because they didn't have access to the equipment and the money and all that stuff. But now, you can make a very professional looking film with very, pretty much consumer equipment. So it's great that way. But of course, I think it's all about, the story you're telling and how you're telling it. Herschel Gordon Lewis, the exploitation filmmaker, once said, "Nobody ever walked out of a theater because of the ragged pan." And I was like, well, that's I remember that. It's true.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only couple times that I've ever walked out of a movie, it was because of the story, and that was because it dragged, and not because necessarily that that there's shaky camera and everything. I mean, I saw Blair Witch, and that was shaky cam all the way straight through, and that's crazy. So,
dude, I watched Star Wars last night, the first one, and in the cantina scene, the pan across it is terrible. It was like, if I was directing, it'd be like, let's do that again. Star Wars. So, I mean, Nobody cared. No one cares.
Yeah.
Obviously nobody wants to get motion sickness, and people do like pretty images, but films work in all kinds of different ways. Some work because of great performances or appealing actors. Some have great scripts. Some have beautiful locations. Some have have important subject matter. It's all the movies work in all different ways.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is that you have so many opportunities as well. But I really hope everybody goes out and watches Antarctica. Like I said, you guys can catch that on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, as well as YouTube. And like I said, any of your satellite providers will have it as well. I think Breaker.com also has it, so you guys can check that out as well. Where can we find you out on social media at all, Keith?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, director Keith Bearden. And thanks everybody for watching, listening, and I hope you all enjoy Antarctica. And if you didn't enjoy Antarctica, send me a message and I will refund you your $4.
Well, that sounds great, Keith. Again, thanks a lot for joining us. And do we have any other projects coming up for you, or are we kind of waiting on what's going on with the pandemic?
I am, well, obviously everybody's sort of waiting for the world to come back to normal. We are casting, we're working with casting directors on a new project that, cross fingers. Nothing is real until you get to say action or a check clears your bank account. So, but cross fingers.
Well, thanks a lot, Keith, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You guys can check us out on social media at SWIV, and Somewhere in Vegas on Facebook. You guys can go to our Instagram at SWIV Podcast. That's at SWIV Podcast. And we have episodes pretty much every Monday and Wednesday, so you guys can check it out there as well. We've got some really great interviews coming up. You can also listen to some of our archives over on our home, Spreaker.com. If you guys want to subscribe to us, you guys can do so by any of your podcast catchers, including iTunes and Spotify and whatever. You could also ask for us on Alexa. Just ask for Somewhere in Vegas, and it'll play you the latest episode of that as well. You guys can also check us out on iHeartRadio as well. With that in mind, we'll talk to you guys next time here on Somewhere in Vegas.